Casey Shepard, a health coach here, bringing you more information every week so that you can empower yourself to learn more about your own body. The more you know, the better able you are to apply those things and stick with them, understanding what it's actually doing for you. And learning some of these patterns and things that come up will help you dive deeper into yourself and your own health. So this video, I want to talk about stress. And it's just such a broad topic, but I think there's a misunderstanding when I speak about stress and people just think, oh, well, I'm not stressed or I'm not processing stress. But stress comes in so many different ways, so many different avenues, and there's so many different things that trigger stress. It's not always a physical, but it could be a neurological, emotional stress response. It could be that psychological past trauma. It could be a actual physical stress response that you're overworking out or you've overexerted yourself, or it can actually just be a mental stress, something that's going on at work in your personal life. But what's interesting is that most people don't understand that regardless of what kind of stress it is, it's still affecting the body similarly. So that is kind of the problem. And I think I can address somebody who's, going through a lot of emotional life issues, and they are constantly being bombarded with things that are happening in their life that they have no control over, whether it's family, grief, money, different things that are triggering this internal stress, something that they can't do anything about. But then we have neurological stress and stress response. And then we get into more of the fight or flight, freeze response, maybe some past trauma, things that are always keeping our nervous system activated in like a specific state. And a lot of people aren't really aware of those different states, but if you are kind of dealing with past trauma or triggers, you really have a lower stress threshold. And the majority of people have that lower threshold as they get older. We've been through so much stress. We are now being bombarded with way more than we've ever had to deal with in our lives when it comes to finances, being overstimulated with our music, the internet, social media, all of these things that we've really never had so much to deal with before. And then if you bring in people who are looking to have a specific physique goal, or they have some sort of health concern or health issue, on top of that, they are concerned with the amount of exercise that they're getting in. Not getting in enough exercise can affect their nervous system and the stress in our bodies. However, a lot of people who are trying to obtain a specific weight loss or physique goal are in the gym overtraining and overexerting, do a ton of high intensity work. They're outside running and doing all of this overactive stuff, all while under eating. Under eating is another thing that can create a lot of stress in our bodies. Our metabolism gets stressed. So those are kind of the three main types of stress that we can have on our systems. But what complicates things is that, let's say you have some underlying thyroid issue. A lack of thyroid hormone is going to cause the adrenals and the stress hormones to kick in to provide energy into the cell. That's something that the thyroid is supposed to be doing, but if it is not, that stress response is being activated all the time. Now, let's use this same example here. Somebody has an underactive thyroid, they don't know it, okay? Now they're struggling with losing weight because their metabolism isn't as high as it should be, okay? And so not only are their adrenals and their cortisol hormones kicking in order to get that energy glucose into the cell to compensate, so you're overproducing on cortisol. So not only is that happening, but on top of that, this person is frustrated with their weight loss results. And so they are going into the gym and doing way more cardio, way higher intensity of workouts. And then they start deficiting calories really high on top of that. And lack of nutrition in the body and not having enough calories in general is also a big stress response on the body. So you have like 5 or 6 or 7 different things that are hitting your stress and your cortisol, your neurological and your adrenals at the same time. And so this is where we start to see things spiral out of control. And this is the one reason that I will say, There are people out here who are just frustrated and they are doing everything right that they believe to be true. They're working out, they're looking at their macros, or they're over dieting, and they're doing this stuff, but they're exhausted. And not only that, but their stress is continuing to spiral out of control. And at that point, we start to see other hormonal imbalances that are happening and other things that start to go. So, one thing trickles over into the other, and a lot of people who've been running on adrenaline and stress for a long time, whether it was like a childhood trigger or a physiological response, an emotional response, or something that's off in the body physically and internally, these people would be what I would consider addicted to stress. They keep themselves in this stress pattern, stressful environment, and they have a hard time relaxing and just being and resting. They feel like they're not doing enough. They feel like more lazy. And a lot of times when I'm bringing people into these healing processes, once they've been on this adrenaline overdrive for so long, once the body starts healing and you start bringing that stress down, healing the thyroid, healing some of these other things, they literally crash. Like their body is like, oh my gosh, I don't have to run on this adrenaline, and your whole system just melts. And I think that's very tough for people to experience when they're used to just being this like go, 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 go. Their system is like, finally I can chill, finally I can relax, finally I can just, let my cells, get the energy that they need. And your system needs that downtime to recover from just the years and the months of bombarding it all the time. And as much as I can sit here and say this to people and tell them this is how it goes, a lot of people still will have a hard time when they're going through their own journey. Like they think that they're, somehow the exception to the rule with how their body works. But this is really actually what happens. And the downtime and the recovery for each individual is very different. But until you really go in and assess the full process, like personally, when I go through my clients' intake forms, whether it's consultation or a coaching client that I'm onboarding, we do dive back pretty deep into things that have happened, when certain things started going downhill, medications that were taken, infections, surgeries. We look at the hormones, the full report, and we go through your last health history as well as some of the symptoms that you're experiencing, and the lab work all together, what your current lifestyle is like, how you're in the gym, all those things, to really get a picture of, okay, this is what's been happening, this is how it's worked, this is where we're at, and because of knowing all those things, this is how we're going to address it. And so you really do have to dive a little bit deeper when you're figuring these things out for people. So I wanted to give people a better understanding of how stress works, the kind of more of the internal and other viewpoints of it, and just let people know like that mental stress that you're going through day in and day out, it's affecting you way more than you realize physically. An emotional stress response is still triggering cortisol and adrenaline in your body. And it's not the same as going to work out, but it's a similar stress response. So if you're having issues with your own stress levels, one of the very popular things out there is cortisol saliva testing. Personally, I have done it before, and it's not something that I do. I think it's honestly, in my personal opinion, pointless. Unless you're stage 4 adrenal fatigue, where you're absolutely crashed and you need medication to come up, taking a test to tell you that you're stressed at certain times of the day is pointless. And especially for women, but men as well, day to day, those stress patterns are going to change depending on how much sleep you've had, depending on if you've been in the gym, whatever. There's too many outliers to take that one stress test on one day to tell you where your cortisol is. But if you're at the point where you feel like you have adrenal stress issues, you most likely do, So taking a test to tell you that you're stressed isn't going to change and help the situation. Now, what needs to be figured out is why. Why am I being triggered with all this stress? What's going on? And what else now is off because of the stress? What other hormones have been off because of it, or what other hormones are off that are causing this stress, vice versa. And so I believe that that is the important part. As always, if you need more help with diving into your own problems, want to get a deeper dive into your system based on science, actual lab work, and someone who's into functional medicine, I have the physique side of things as well as the holistic side. We put it all together into more of an integrative plan to get you on the right track to your health.